Welcome to Positive Filter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career with a little self-help around the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope that what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. Hey, Positive Filter listeners, it's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Filter. I am joined by my line brother. If you don't know, we did an episode about our first year in Alpha. It's my boy, Brandon.
How's it going, world?
Yes.
Brandon?
Yes, a little toned down from last time.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to be a little bit more reserved. Like it's a family environment. I apologize for anything that I said that may have offended anyone last time, but I'm back, and I'm back with a more mature look on things.
Yes, more mature. Shout out to maturity. But we're gonna have a pretty heavy episode today. This is a topic that is, very serious to both of us. And in recent light, we're both, I would say, happy, joyful Black men with lots of blessings. But what a lot of people don't realize about both of us is that we've had a pretty tough, I had a tough year, and Brandon had a tough year a couple of years ago. And we were able to connect on those struggles in our past. And we're going to talk a little bit about the mental health aspect, specifically amongst Black men and the stigma and things like that. But I wanted to lead up with one of the things that made me comfortable to talk to Brandon about my struggles with, honestly, depression and a little bit of anxiety, or what I did was he shared a very powerful article with the world. And when I read that, I've already discussed with Brandon before that because we're line brothers, we're very close. But when he showed that article to the world and expressed, took a lot of courage to do so, it allowed me to, I think, actually do this episode and feel comfortable talking about it. But Brandon, for the listeners, tell them a little bit about the article and what sparked you to write that article, especially for the listener in the magazine.
So it's for Blavity, and so Blavity, however you want to pronounce it. It's a platform that is primarily for people of color, kind of to go over things that are going on as far as current events are concerned, but then also a lot of things from a personal and opinion type of platform. And so I felt compelled, and I think a lot of it is I use writing as my journal, right? So I use writing to express my feelings, express whatever emotion I'm dealing with at that particular time. And with this feeling or this time frame, a lot of what I was feeling was around my mental, I guess, I don't want to say mental deficiency in any way, but it's like just more of like the mental setbacks that I was having. And so the best way that I thought to articulate it was through writing it out. And so I used the Blavity platform as a place to talk a little bit more about the issue that I was dealing with, or even just walk people through how they started or how the symptoms and all that started. Because I think a lot of times with Black men, and with men in general, it's not even just like a Black man stigma, but a man thing. It's to kind of hide your feelings or just to keep going, keep trucking through, because you're supposed to be pouring into other people, right? You're supposed to be pouring into your spouse, your partner, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever it is. You're pouring to other people, but you're not necessarily pouring into yourself. And a lot of times what that causes is deficits in the way we are conducting ourselves. And we don't usually realize it until it's too late.
Right. And that's very powerful. And I definitely connected with all those things, pouring into others. And one of the things that really struck me, I felt like the main thing with the stigma of anxiety and depression and going through these struggles, the main thing that stood out to me was the feeling of isolation. And I think one of the things that broke down that isolation was letting your guard down, having the courage to be vulnerable. And I do specifically remember the first time I told the line that I was struggling, and I remember it was a group text, and I think I was fed up. I felt like I was out of character, and I felt like, I just wasn't me. I wasn't goofy, and I just had a hard time being myself. And I remember just saying, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna say something, and whatever it is, it is. And I remember I said something, and I was surprised. It was like bling, 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 bling. Everyone was like, "We're here for you. It's okay, Phil." All that stuff. And then I remember you specifically messaged me on the side and said, I've been struggling too, um, and things like that. And I don't know. For me, that was very comforting because I definitely look when we see a group of particularly strong black men, you definitely feel like there's a deficiency with you, or you feel you're odd, or you feel like you're not strong when you realize that a lot of people are struggling. So go back to the article. You specifically told about opening up to others. One of the most powerful stories in that article was actually opening up to your parents. Can you tell a little bit about opening up to your parents, like you did in that article?
Well, okay, so full transparency. Um, let me specify there. So I opened to my mother.
Yeah, yeah, true.
And it's not to say that my father's not someone that's understanding of stuff like that, but it was a situation where, in particular, who I felt comfortable with was opening up to my mother. So background, my mother's a social worker.
Yeah.
And so she has a very solid understanding of mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because with her career, she's not. This is a second career for her. So I watched her go into this. And I watched her learn more about the understandings of people's diagnosis and all of those things. And it's one thing to have patients and have clients that are dealing with certain things. It's another thing to have your child deal with something, right?
Perfect.
And so with me, there was a big aspect of denial that was there, and it was obviously the shock was there, but it was like, no, like you must not have done this, or you couldn't have done that, because if you did, you wouldn't be feeling like this.
Oh, your mom.
And yes, my mom was saying that.
She was saying logic. She's trying to make logic to it.
She was making logic out of it, and it immediately went from being a situation that was common or normal to her to being something that was just like, this is completely out of bounds. This is completely this is unusual for her. Right. And so she freaked out a little bit. And I wouldn't say that she initially handled it the best way, but it was one of those things where, as time went on, as far as the conversation was concerned, she was able to really digest what I was saying, see where I was coming from. And I was honest with her. I was like, hey, honestly, I couldn't tell you a lot of these things because I felt that you wouldn't be able to handle it, or because I felt that this may be out of the scope of what you are willing to deal with. And so a lot of it was about transparency and being transparent with her about my expectations around her emotions. And I think that broke her down a little bit in a way that helped her to come to terms with what was happening and say, okay, look, I gotta look at myself and look at how I'm reacting to the situation. And so she kind of flipped it a little bit, and at that point she was able to really understand where I was coming from and take what I was coming from into more consideration. And I think it made for a healthy conversation. It was something where honestly, when it was done, I was pretty surprised at how well she digested it.
Well, I mean, I think the training probably helped, and I guess took time. Yeah. And quite honestly, this is probably gonna be the first time a lot of people, even in my own family, if they listen to my podcast, will hear this. I mean, quite honestly, I didn't even tell my parents, and I still haven't. So, surprise, mom and dad, if you listen, that I was struggling with anxiety and depression. But one of the things I can empathize with your mother is I got my master's in counseling, so it was surreal for me because I read about it in class. I know the DSM. I know what a panic attack is. The book, the DSM.
DSM-4.
Oh, how not sleeping well, and for me, when I was experiencing this stuff, it was out of body because I was like, I'm not supposed to be feeling like this, or I know I should be able to stop it because I know what these diagnoses are.
Right.
I would connect it to I was almost a passenger in a car that's in a car wreck, and I'm slamming on the brakes, but the car was still going to get in an accident. If you know what I mean, you know there's trouble ahead. You know where the car is headed, and you're trying to stop the car, but the car is not stopping. And
Mm.
that's the feeling I had because with all my training and background and working with other people, I've been able to recognize, oh, like that person's depressed clearly, or that person's anxious. And it's easy to point the finger and talk about someone else, but it's very hard when it's close to home. And that was probably one of my biggest struggles is me identifying like, yo, this is I need help or I'm not doing well. Because like you said, it's a different thing when it's a patient. It's a different thing when it's not you. But it's totally crazy when it's you and you know that you can't stop it. But I know specifically for black men, I think we have to have specifically a stronger courage because I see so many like white friends of mine. They'd be like, "Yeah, I was depressed." And I told my mom, I'm like, "Okay, cool," but like that's just not like a normal okay, cool situation. Like it's a bigger deal.
Well, and I think a lot of that is just from I wouldn't necessarily say socioeconomic standpoint, but also primarily from a historic standpoint.
Yeah.
As black people, not
Mhm.
necessarily segmented between man or woman, but like
Yeah.
as black people, we carry the weight of the world on our shoulders in a
Mhm.
lot of ways.
Mhm.
And so you're expected to be strong. You're
Mhm.
expected to just like do things as they are and
Mhm.
focus on okay,
Mhm.
how am I going to provide for my family?
Mhm.
How am I going to make things better for myself? Like, and
Mhm.
that's it. You're not really thinking about, well, how is this affecting me?
Mhm.
How is this hurting me? How am I dealing with this? How am I reacting to certain situations?
Yeah.
How is the situation trickling into my personal life? Like those are the
Yeah.
kind of second level conversations that we don't typically have time to have with ourselves.
Right.
And so a lot of it is just a slowdown situation that I think that our parents, to be honest, I don't think our parents had that opportunity.
No, they don't.
Like they just didn't have the opportunity to stop and be like, okay, well, I'm feeling this way. Like it wasn't about feelings. It's like they had to do what they had to do to get where they had to go.
You know what line I usually would get? If you told any person that's an older generation that I'm having a hard time, guess what they would say? Just pray about it. Like go to church. Did you go to church and pray about it?
Yeah.
And the thing is, I'm not saying I'm anti-religious, and I think that prayer and meditation and things and believing in God is a strong thing. But then it's almost like a passenger thing. Like you can't just say I'm gonna pray to God and then that's it. Like you have to like do some other things in addition to praying to God. And that was one of my biggest troubles. Like, yes, I'm praying, but I got to do other things too. And this is hard. Like I'm having a hard time, and just praying about it is not sufficient. You know what I'm saying? And so that's one of the things I thought about. Oh, here we go.
And one thing that I will say is, if we're gonna plug Bible into it,
yes,
James chapter 2, verses 14 to 26. Part of what they talk about is that faith without works is dead.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you are feeling certain ways about certain things, and you're praying about it, but like, what else are you doing about it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you talking to someone? Are you seeking out professional help? Right. Are you looking within yourself? Are you taking all the steps that are necessary to make yourself a better person for the people around you? Because if not, then it's like, the praying about it just doesn't work.
Yeah, like you want to pray for a six-pack, but then you like don't go to the gym.
I pray for a six-pack all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, what the thing is, it's opening up to another generation. I think it's slowly. I think the stigma is getting better.
Mm-hmm.
It's slowly, disappearing. One of the things I would like to say that one of the things that exacerbated my anxiety and depression this past year, at the beginning of the year, was a sense of imposter syndrome. Have you heard of that before?
Mm.
Now, imposter syndrome is usually for high achieving people. I would like to say I'm high achieving, where you feel like the achievements and scholarship that you earn is unwarranted. Yeah. You're an imposter. You're a fraud.
Yeah.
And so literally, it was a combination. Like I started a new job, and I used to think, I don't know if this is irrational thoughts, but it is. I'm going to get fired today. Mm. And then I couldn't stop those train of thoughts. Or like, I go to a chapter meeting, and I'm gonna put alpha in it. I'm like, I don't belong here. Like I'm not like we have all we go we get grilled and alpha man is tough, alpha man is this, and then I'm like, well, if I'm depressed or anxious, alpha men are not anxious, depressed. Mm-hmm. Like I'm an imposter, like because we got grilled so much about being the top cream of the crop, and then I feel like I don't belong, I feel weak, and that imposter syndrome affected alpha work, my relationships. I felt like a fraud, and then. In addition to that, this podcast, I was doing this positive filter. And I'm like, how am I supposed to be telling people about being positive if I'm literally like falling apart? Like I'm a fraud even to my own brand. So one of the things that brought me back to that, with counseling and reframing it is that no, I have achieved because I deserve these achievements. And I think that had to be reframed when I was in a better mind. Because negative self-talk, sometimes you just can't turn it off. And I know now, like, I can combat every single one of those. Like, you're gonna get fired. No, you got hired because you're gonna be a good person for the job.
Right.
You don't deserve to be an alpha. Well, that's not true because I wouldn't have made it past all the different steps to be one. So like that's a false. And then like in regards to some other issues like being a dad and not being a good, like no, my kids are fine. So I'm able to combat those negative thoughts now. But when you're in the throes of a real anxiety provoking situation, depression, those illogical thoughts, those imposter syndrome is hard to turn off. But what was some of the things when you were going through it? I was saying mine was imposter syndrome, very related to that fraudness. What were some of the things when you talked about struggling at work that a while ago? What were some of the things that you were struggling with that triggered those?
So I think a lot of it is the same, right? And I think that the imposter syndrome thing is something that I had to deal with in a lot of ways as well. And so when it comes to mental health in general, it's similar to other parts of our body where it's a muscle. And I look at it from a muscle standpoint where I can't have someone else build that muscle for me. And so a lot of times what I used to do, and kind of like tipping in towards like love languages and stuff like that, like I'm someone that I needed to seek the affirmation from other people, right? Like I needed the words of affirmation from like a boss or a coworker. Yeah, it's one of my top ones.
Mine's word of affirmation too.
So I needed the words from like a coworker or from a line brother. Something like someone had to tell me that I was doing a good job for me to know that I was doing a good job. And if I didn't hear that from someone, I was in my head. And I was in my head badly, and it was like twisting things, making things out to be something they weren't, and it was just like, okay, I'm going down this downward. It's a downward spiral at that point.
Wow, that's actually we're like mirrors.
Yeah, it's painful when you're dealing with it, but a lot of it is learning through that process that you have to be your own strength. Yes. You have to be the person that is building yourself up, because there are a lot of times now where I feel myself slipping into well, I'm not deserving of this, or damn, this girl loves me. No, I'm not worthy of her love. Like that's how I'm feeling, and and those kind of things can be detrimental to your relationships, obviously, as we talked about. And so when those things are happening, you have to stop yourself and say, okay, well, hold up. No, Brandon, you are okay with this. You are worthy of this. This is something that you are deserving of. You've busted your butt for this,
Yeah, exactly.
And so having that kind of mindset towards it, it's a hard transition to make. And I know for me, it was a transition that I made through. Part of it was through conversations with like a therapist, and then also just through personal reflection. Right. And so a lot of what I was able to gather was that personal reflection aspect that helped me to be better with how I handled that.
I like that, and I like that our love language is the same as words of affirmation. So the thing is, obviously, what we struggle with both is that maybe we are doing a good job, 100%, and someone else's way of showing we're not doing a good, or someone's way of showing that we're doing a good job won't be like, Philip, you're doing a good job. It might be like, I don't know, a gift or something, or some other, I don't know the other languages.
Well, I mean,
so we have to find those words of affirmation for ourselves.
Find it in yourself, right?
So, like, what I'm thinking is like words of affirmation means positive self-talk. Like, I have to give my own words of affirmation. One of the things that helped me, and I like that we both have this, is the 5-minute journal, where I have to write my own words of affirmation. I feel like that's visually me writing my own words of affirmation. Like, I'm doing this, this, and this today, and then when I look back at the 3 bullet points that I did and I accomplished those things, I gave myself those words of affirmation that like I accomplished things. So how do you balance? Like, is that the way that you're feeding your own love language and confidence?
So yeah, to an extent, because I'm feeding it through writing. A lot of it is through writing, and it's not necessarily always in my 5-minute journal. And so to explain to you guys what Phil was talking about with the 5-minute journal thing, so that's something where I think I suggested it to you, right?
No.
Did I? Oh, you knew about it already?
Yeah. Shout out to my cousin. My cousin honestly, my cousin gave it to me over Christmas.
Oh,
And
nice.
even during the tough time I had in the spring, for some reason I just stuck with it. Even and it was crazy to read that it would be like one day like don't freak out, like
Right.
don't have a bad day.
Right.
And then I'd have a bad day and I'm like shit, like dang, I messed up, right? But now like I reflect on it, I'm thinking I'm so grateful she gave me that because I read about what a tough day in April was compared to what a tough day in December was, and they're night and day. So, but she gave me that book. But then we connected over it. It's like I think I just posted a picture.
How did
No,
you know that
I
I had
post-
one?
I posted it on Instagram, and you're like, "Oh, snap, Phil! You got the same, you got the same book as me."
Got you.
Yeah.
And that's a book that like I don't even know how I
Yeah.
came to find it myself, but when I found it, it was something that I tried to share with as many people as possible.
Yeah,
because
sure.
I'm like, okay, this is a way to reflect on your day, and then also reflect on like the peaks, the valleys, and how you can get through them. What's good about you throughout all of that, and I think
Yeah.
that's the big thing where at the end of every day we kind of forget to look at ourselves and say, well, how did I come out of this? What do I have to show for it? And a lot of times what we have to show for these things or what we have to show for these days is so much greater than whatever issue we had. And we're so focused and we pinpoint on whatever issue it is, and then we just like allow ourselves to dissect that, spin around on that, and then it's just like our brains go into this big cluster.
Yeah.
And there's so much good in us that we just fail to recognize because of that.
Little victories.
And that's dangerous. And it's so dangerous to our mental health.
Yeah.
And for men, for women, for everybody. But I think for men, it's like it's more dangerous because not only are we feeling these things to about ourselves or about whatever is going on, but we don't necessarily talk about it. And so being courageous enough to be communicative, and I'm not saying to necessarily only talk to a therapist, but I'm talking about when it comes to your partner. When it comes to like finding a friend that you can just articulate how you're feeling to, like we don't do that enough.
Yeah.
Everything is not about drinking or like hanging out watching football. Like it's not always about that. Sometimes you really have to be honest with your boys. You have to be honest with your people in general and have them love on you, because if you don't have them do that, like you're hurting yourself and you're not necessarily allowing your relationship with whoever it is to grow as much as they could. It's not reaching its maximum potential.
No,
because that's the second level.
I'll be quite honest. I was actually growing resentment of the line. And I was starting to not want to be around you guys. And I was starting to feel isolated. And I would actually give you a lot of credit that you brought me back into the line and feeling welcomed. Because like in that isolation, feeling like, man, they just give me a hard time. They don't understand. I'm struggling. And eventually I think that's what it was. It's like, I'm just going to tell them I'm struggling and maybe they'll, understand more. And I'm very surprised that you did. And then, but I was also, what I would also add to it is that my mind wasn't right. Like, I was also having illogical thoughts. I don't belong in the line. I don't belong here. It was feeding into that. And then I think a lot of it was, you talk about the different your people, and I think I was over dumping. I have a wonderful wife. She's a social worker, so she understands, and she knows what I was going through. But I was dumping way heavily on her after just having kids. And then I was dumping too. I'm very fortunate that I have other people in my life, like my best friend, Hillard. He went through the same counseling program as me. So after this counseling program, we became better friends because we were able to talk about feelings because we both know. We weren't talking like this in high school, and then we both went through this magical JMU counseling program. So I was dumping on him. I was dumping on my wife. But that's two people, and one couldn't really help me. Like my friend in Idaho is gone. He can't give me no hug or just tell me I'm good or whatever. He has to just listen to this over the phone. And then my wife is like, I got 2 kids. She literally told me, like, you got to take care of yourself because I got kids to worry about. Like, you can't give me all this stress. And that's very fair. It's very valid. So I do agree that while you need to be protective of your feelings, right? And you need to work on yourself. I think you need to allow yourself to find more than one person to be vulnerable. So like I said, like spread it out. Have a trusted therapist or counselor. That's one. And hopefully a non-biased, non-judgmental one, because that can be a good launching point. More than just one friend that you dump on, and more than just your partner that you dump on, because I think, as you can say, that could be a lot of weight to put all that on one person. So I like to. I hate to say I like to spread it around, but I'm gonna spread.
But I think that's valid. Like you need to diversify your portfolio when it comes
Yeah.
when it comes to who you're spreading all of that to. And I think something else that's important. I saw this somewhere a few days ago, and I loved it because what we also forget is that as we're having these conversations with people, these same people that we're talking to and venting to are probably having things of their own, right?
Yes.
And so you have to be very careful about what you're saying. And this particular, I think it was a meme, or I don't know if it was a meme or like a text message. I can't remember what it was, but the point is that how it came off was before they told the person about their issue, it was like, do you have the mental capacity to handle what I need to tell you right now?
Yeah, layers, levels.
Yeah, because I think that's important because depending on the day, I know for me personally, I do not have the mental capacity every day to handle what my friends may have at me or throw at me. And so there are times when I have to be true to myself and say, okay, well, I'm not going to answer this call. I'm not going to answer this text. I'm going to put my phone is steadily on do not disturb, and people hate me for it. But I think a lot of times it's because I'm trying to keep my peace.
Yeah, protect
because
yourself.
A lot of it we need to be careful what we're dishing out to people and making sure that they're okay before we dish it out. But what we also need to make sure of is that we're not allowing people to dish too much on us or dump too much on us, I should say, when we can't handle it mentally because we can't always we can't handle everything. Everybody can't handle everything.
Balance. And I think, one of the things I learned too, that's why there's a lot of burnout within the healthcare profession, because all these counselors and therapists, they're so used to taking care of like the world's nastiest situations, but they don't take care of themselves, and then they just burn out. And that's exactly what you're saying. And also, I think another thing too is that while we're talking about sharing our feelings and stuff, we're not telling you to go, be an open book to everyone because, sometimes the opportunities to be vulnerable. You can be vulnerable to the wrong people, and they either can hurt you with that, or they can just not really care. And so it's a very careful thing. Like I feel like to be vulnerable and be your true self to people, it takes a lot of trust.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think there's probably got to be a vetting system.
Oh,
where
absolutely.
You have to someone you can't do that on day one.
Yeah,
you gotta earn the trust of someone.
Yeah, and that's something and I know this is not necessarily something we're talking about positivity, but like me being who I am, I have to always spin religion back into it, right?
Yeah, so that's right. That's positive. That's a very positive
it's a part of my positive aspect. And so one thing that I pray for constantly is discernment and being able to just differentiate between someone that's a fraud and someone that I can trust. And when it comes to conversations, I'm not going into any conversation just talking about what's going on with me. And I think sometimes even with the article, when I wrote that, I was very selective about who I shared that with. Granted, it's on a public platform.
I was about to say,
right, it's on a public platform, but like who I said, hey, go check this out to, like there were certain cousins that I said it to and certain ones that I didn't. Well, there were certain line brothers that I said it to and certain ones that I didn't. You know what I'm saying?
I'm about to say, we're literally on a podcast.
Right. So now, now it's public.
No, I'm saying I'm public on this podcast.
Right.
But as you said too, I use a little bit of discernment. I didn't share with everyone.
Right.
And as we said, we're also using some discernment. We did a very blanketed statement about anxiety and depression and that we experienced it.
Right.
So we're not going to be. I particularly are not going to go on a podcast and say like individually on Monday certain such thing.
Yeah.
So we still have to have some kind of discretion.
Right.
And protection of yourself.
Right. But I think that it is important to be able to have the conversation with certain people. And so for me, a lot of what I do is because I'm not an open book necessarily, but I am someone that is pretty forthcoming. If you ask me a question about myself, I'm pretty open. I'm willing to tell you. And so I'm comfortable enough with most people to like kind of walk them through certain things. When it gets to something that's so, in my opinion, special, because I think that the level of anxiety and depression that I deal with on a day-to-day basis is something that's special. Because to be able to deal with me at that level it's a layer that is underneath what I show most. And so it's intimate. And so I have to be very careful with how I like disclose that, how I express that to others. And so if you are at a point where I'm doing that with you, it's because I've vetted you in my head. I've looked at, like, we've had conversations. I've honestly, sometimes I've let you tell me things first.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's
but,
right. Yeah,
but, you know, it's that kind of thing where I need to know that we have that kind of dialogue.
yeah,
That
true,
kind of trust
100%. And I got that. And one of the things I said too is, you know, Maggie says I'm terrible. I have like the worst poker face. So, you know, like you might be able to discern it better than I am, but like I wear it on my face. And a lot of people noticed when I was upset at certain points of work. They said, they just said on my face, I just looked like it was in a fog, like just looked lost. And so with that being said, like you said, if someone asked me, I was kind of telling people how I was feeling, having a hard time. But I mean, I think it's because I had to, because I was wearing it so bad,
Right.
I couldn't hide it anymore. And one of the things that stuck out in my article is that you never explicitly said what your mental health, you know, issues and that I connected with. You never said the word suicide. You said I just wanted to disappear, and that kind of touched base with me because I never got to the point where I wanted to harm myself, and I'll say that right now. Like I never wanted to harm myself, but there was a moment where I wish I was just not here, and I want to make that strong differentiation with the listeners. Is like there's opportunities where people are not doing well that are not necessarily suicidal, and like I want people only see like these new shows that come out, like what's it called
13 Reasons
13
Why.
Reasons Why and all that, and they think every time someone has depression and anxiety, like let's jump to extreme level number 10, and they say that person will kill himself, when in actuality it's not that far. And I would say in actuality for me, I was really struggling. I was really struggling, but I never at one point wanted to hurt myself, but I definitely wanted to like get in the car and just drive
away.
drive away.
Drive away. Yeah.
And there's a difference between that. And I want the listeners to know that there's some people out there. I want to know if you're a listener of the podcast and you're suffering with anxiety and depression, know that you can talk to someone about that without having to feel like someone's going to judge you, think you're going to kill yourself. Because there's levels to that as well. Like some people, like I said, for me, I just wanted to get away from the stress of work and the stress of being a parent and the stress of having to put up a facade of being alpha, and like the fraudness. I wanted to quit being a fraud and disappear. Jason Bourne style, like new life in another country, just living in a shack. So there is a difference. Can you explain that? You said the word disappear too. What did that mean to you?
It was very similar. I remember a day in particular where I sat outside of my apartment, and at the time I had a roommate. I had two roommates actually at that time, and like I remember just sitting outside the apartment. I'm just like, if I could just drive away and just, I don't know where I was gonna go, but I wish I could just go somewhere and just not be here, and just not be anywhere on the grid, anywhere where anyone could find me. Like I just wish that I could just not be, right? But it was never. And I'm not gonna say never. It was not a situation where I wanted to end anything from a life standpoint. But it's still a hard thing to deal with. It's because it's an odd feeling, right? It's an odd feeling. It's like you look at yourself after you think that way, and it's just like, well, what's making me feel this way? Like how is this thought coming to my head? Like what is so bad about my life that's causing me this? What is so imbalanced? And so it becomes that scares you in and of itself.
That scares you in itself. It's very scary. And the funny part about that is that you said something too, like what's wrong in my life for me to feel this way. And the craziest part is when I was checking it, that's when I knew I was struggling. Is that quite honestly, I was in the most positive work environment I've ever been in my entire life. I have probably one of the most supportive bosses that any person could ever ask for. And this is not a shameless plug. This is real deal. And even with the positive encouragement and the positive work environment, I was still feeling this way. That's when I was like, check. There's something going on. As opposed, like I have a job, I have a roof over my head. I was doing my little 3 things you're grateful for in the morning, and I was like, I can write 3 things. Why am I still feeling like this? So there is a weird. I want to tell the listeners that there's a weird gray zone for anxiety, depression, that is not as extreme as the TV shows make it out to be. The TV, like when they show like someone that's crazy with schizophrenia, someone talking to themselves. Like it's always extra. Like every TV show, every movie, everything is dramatized. When in normal everyday life, mental health can present itself very normal, and that can be very scary too because we see mental health on the extreme level.
Right. And but one thing that I will say is that we see that the extreme level and it exists at the extreme level
Oh yeah,
as
of course,
well.
yeah, of course,
But
yeah,
there are also the other pockets in between.
yeah,
And I think that I remember one thing that I remember vividly. My best friend, like Arnold, when we've been friends since we were like 12 or 13, and I remember saying to him one day, I was like, "Yo, I feel like I'm silently screaming.
yeah,
It's like no one can hear me, and it's like I'm yelling at the top of my lungs, like help me, but like no one can actually hear me, and that was such a painful feeling.
yes,
And
it's physically painful.
yeah, and
It's
even
physical.
like to tell him that, and then to look at him and just him not really know what to do with that either, because that's the other thing. When you tell your friends these things, sometimes they have never been exposed to this. Especially if you're talking to other black men, they're looking at you like, "What?"
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
like I haven't even touched this in myself. I haven't exposed myself to this aspect of myself. And so you're talking to me about this for you. How do I even begin to address this with you? It's hard, and it's a really hard thing. It's a really hard thing to deal with, because you do have to factor in the fact that your friend, again, are people.
Mm-hmm.
They have so much that they can actually deal with,
Mm-hmm.
and you're sometimes exposing them to things that they had no understanding
Yeah.
of before.
I mean,
So you
like
have
I
to be
said,
patient.
I mean, I scared Hillary. I think I said the same thing, but not the screaming thing. But I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this.
Yeah.
And he literally texted Maggie. He was like, "Yo, I've never felt like this.
Mm.
What can I do?
Mm.
What can I do to help?" And so, with that being said, you're right. Like with this non-extreme cases, it's just not normal. It's
Mhm.
not normal, and it's not present. But the funny part now is that the more and more people I've shared this with, I've shared this with, I've been really remarkably surprised at how many people say "me too" or
Mm-hmm.
"wow" or
Yep.
"thank you for sharing that." I mean, it's literally. I think what I'm coming to find out is that depression and anxiety has been a silent killer of black men just as much as heart disease.
Yeah.
You know, like and also what I believe, I fully believe it has a physiological effect on your body. Like, right, like it's slowly killing us because it's, making your stress is so much that your heart is not good and your breathing is not good, all these things. So it's crazy like how long this has gone on and things like that. And I don't know, I find like, I don't know, there's just some things that's crazy. I don't know. I think the funniest part is like afterwards going through it, like I hate to feel cliche, but it's like I feel stronger. Like I don't know. It's like, and I was gonna quote. I said, I love J. Cole. He's one of my favorite rappers,
Mm-hmm.
and he said that you got to find beauty in the struggle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, like I can look back and reflect on that, and like I really do, in a weird way, feel empowered.
Yeah.
Like I'm stronger. I'm mentally stronger. Um, I am. I've connected better with people. My relationships have gotten better.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I don't think. I mean, would I want to feel like that again? Hell no.
Right.
But having felt like that and made it through, I think reflection. I think I try to tell people. I think this has probably been one of the most transformative years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. What do you think about it?
So, and I agree with that completely. I think that it is something that does make you stronger. But one thing that I think that is super important for people to remember is, while it makes you stronger, it never goes away.
Mm.
It's not something. It's not something that goes away. And so you have, and I know for me this has been the case for sure, where it's like I have 6 to 8 months sometimes where things are just like smooth, right? And for me, that's crazy and it's amazing because I've been through a year or two where it just was not cool, right? But then when you hit that mark where it starts to fall apart a little bit, it's like, oh wait, hold on, what's going on here? Like, and you don't know how to deal with it sometimes. It's like you're caught off guard by it. And I know, and if I'm being 100% honest, that's me right now. I had, and I was talking to Phil about this yesterday, where I've been on a path for I would say a solid 6 months where things were smooth, and it's almost like you forget that you're even doing anything to fix your feelings or fix your thought process. It's like you're just moving, you're just walking through everything, you're kind of just going through it, and you're just taking life as it is, and boom, things start to change.
Mhm.
Your body just starts to act differently. Your mindset, your thoughts are racing. Everything, you can't sleep. Everything is kind of like falling back into what it used to be. And it's like, whoa, what's happening? And you don't know how to necessarily handle it sometimes because you take little time to actually soak up how to handle those situations. And I think because you're so quick to try to get out of it that you forget, okay, well, I need to figure out how to deal while I'm in it. And so that's something that I'm working on right now, where it's like I'm really just trying to figure out how do I deal while I'm in this space. Because I've been in this space. I was telling Phil, I've been in this space for about 2 weeks now, where it's like everything is messed up. Like as far as how I'm carrying myself at work,
You're doing better.
it's fine. Like at work, it's fine. Like, and it's funny because I was talking to someone at work today, and she was like, you're always so chipper, and I was like, and if you ask the wrong person, they're not gonna tell you that because it's something where I know that I have to keep it on at work, but when it comes to being outside of work, my mind is constantly thinking about work and thinking about all the issues that I'm having at work. And what is my boss thinking about me right now? What is she thinking about, like how I'm performing with XYZ? And then it's also trickling down to what's going on in my personal life. How are my friends feeling about me? How are my loved ones thinking about me? How is my partner thinking about me? Like all of those things start to rack your brain, and before I know it, I'm sleeping 2 hours a night.
You're back in the funk.
Yeah, I'm back in the funk. And it's like, and so you need to figure out how to get yourself out of that. And I know for me, someone that's extremely close to my heart, extremely close to me in general, she's been helping me with practicing mindfulness and focusing my thoughts and focusing my energy on what I'm dealing with in that moment versus trying to look at every little thing or like focus on everything. And it is so difficult. That is one of the hardest things that I've done. But it is something that I know has positive effects to it. And I've seen in the glimmers where I've been able to do it effectively, I see the positive effects. And so that's something that has been helping me on how I combat the I don't even want to call them sporadic, but like the blasts of reality, because that's what it is when it comes to the feelings that start to hit you again. It's just reality.
Well, I mean, it's cyclical. I thought I had a really tough time one semester in college, and so I knew what this train looked like. But I guess you're saying every 6 months. Mine was like a 10-year gap. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I'm like, oh no, not again. That kind of feeling.
Yeah.
And similar to that car, I've been in that car ride before, and I tried to pump the brakes and it wasn't working. So, like you said, it is going to be. Maybe I feel like now I'm more equipped with the tools to, like a guy that has a heart attack. We might have a chance of having another heart attack, but at least this time you know how to try to prepare for it.
And prevent. Right, prevent. That's the big thing.
Like take aspirin or something like that. So for me, I know that me having these two significant struggles in my life, one in college and one recently, that you're right, like, am I, magically cured? No, it's going to be something that, like anyone else, I needs to be something that I'm attuned to, and know, like, yeah, like this week I've been slipping, this week I'm slipping. Oh, it's multiple weeks of slipping. Okay, this is not good. Let's let's tune it back. But I think now I would say the number one key is awareness, awareness of self, and awareness of. Like you said, I'm understanding not only when I'm in the struggle, I have more awareness. I think each time it's probably going to get better. And there's people, there's famous people that have done great things in their lives that behind the scenes you never knew they struggled their whole lifetime with mental illness. Like, for instance, the one that popped in my mind is Robin Williams. Like, you never thought, he's so funny, but he literally struggled his whole life with that. So, it's not just go away.
And I think that people, and it's unfortunate that it took something like that to, I wouldn't say wake people up, but Robin Williams is someone that spent his whole life making people laugh
Mm-hmm.
and had his own issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was something that was eye opening for a lot of individuals because it's like people can, just because you look okay doesn't mean that you are okay internally.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's remedies are different.
Yeah.
Everyone's situations are different. So we have to be respectful of that. And when it comes to how to, I guess, handle that, every situation is not the same, and so you can't treat every situation the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so as a friend, that's something you have to be mindful of as well.
Yeah, you can be like, oh, you just went through it. You got it again. Like, it might be a different, unique
It's a
set
whole
of challenges.
it's a whole new set of challenges.
And I thought that was crazy, too, because, like, usually all my favorite comedians are, like, the most depressed people. Let's think of Richard Pryor, drug addict. I mean, they're able to turn very traumatic. Like, this dude set himself on fire with crack, and then made it funny.
Right.
like, sometimes our favorite comedians can take extreme trauma and present it in a different way
to laugh, make you laugh.
Yeah. But we really break down some of their jokes. It was like, that's really sad what they did or what they experienced. Like Kevin Hart, like his dad was a drug addict showing up at a spelling bee. That's probably one of the funniest skits he did.
That's like imagine that being your actual dad that showed up at your spot and be like high off or whatever.
Yeah,
you know, like that's
okay.
Like that's sad. And so those are the kind of things where it's like sometimes people mask them with whatever they want to mask them with.
They still need to be checked in on.
Yeah. And so being cognizant of that and realizing that I don't want to say that the world's not all about us, but yeah, I will say that. It's not all about us. It's not all about what we're dealing with in our moment, but it's like, look at what other people are dealing with in their moments. And look at how they're handling certain situations. Because I think that sometimes it falls on deaf ears and blind eyes, where it's like we look at things from what you tell me kind of, like it's a face value type of situation. Right. And it's like sometimes you have to dig deeper, especially for those that you care about.
Right.
If you care about somebody, whether or not they're telling you exactly what's happening, it's your duty as their loved one to check a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I credit my friends with so heavily, because the people that are close to me, as far as my friends and family, like in my life, they've held that torch.
Yeah.
Where it's like they will check a little bit deeper. If I tell you I'm okay and they don't feel like I'm okay, if they hear it in my tone that I'm not, they push.
Well, I think the main thing is, they feel like people knew I was off when I'm out of character. And the main thing is when you're outside of yourself. Like, I normally am funny and happy and don't take much serious, but I was being extra sensitive and jokes weren't as funny to me, and I was just overthinking things. And people noticed that I was out of character. Like, as you said, they'd be like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay." No, you're not.
Yeah.
I could tell you're off. And you're right, the closest people do that. So we did a pretty good episode. Let's end it on positive. What was some things that has been a useful tool for you? And I would say for me, like a couple things. Randomly telling my friends, telling you. But then I started finding some random resources, like I follow positive people on Instagram. There's a black male therapist that he's going to be another podcast guest, Aaron. I connected with him randomly on Instagram and follow his posts because he was talking about black men issues. Even our own fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha, did that whole campaign for Henry Health and about mental health awareness. And so I think, I don't know, coincidentally, it must be all stars align. All these like random media and Instagram and all these stories about it. The stigma is dying down, and those things have been helpful. What have been some helpful things for you?
So I think for me, a lot of it has been, and this is gonna sound so corny. It's gonna sound so corny, but it's been books. Yeah. It's been books, and it's been books in a way that they're not necessarily designed to be self-help in the sense of like helping you through mental issue or mental situation, but it's just more so just self-help in general.
Okay.
And so I have some I like to call them my literary uncles.
Okay, I like that. Yeah.
So
you read them back to front, or you just pick pages.
Oh no, back to front.
Okay.
And so the ones that I have in particular, Rob Hill Sr.,
Okay.
And he's someone that
Yeah.
I think most people know him because he is always spewing some kind of positive energy on his tweets or his Facebook stuff. But I've read a few of his books,
Okay.
and his books really, I think The Missing Piece was the one that really brought him to light, and it made me realize how similar I was to him. I think honestly, when I closed that book, my eyes were misty. Like it was like I finished it and I was like, wow. Another one for me is Leslie Odom from Hamilton. So he plays Aaron Burr in Hamilton, Black Eye, and he has a book called Failing Up. That's another one where it was like that was so close to home where I clutched him close because of that.
Yeah.
And then Devon Franklin, who is the ever fine, beautiful Megan Good's lucky husband. But he has a book called Produced by Faith, and he has one that's also called 10 Hollywood Commandments. But Produced by Faith in particular was one that really got me through a lot of things from a career switching standpoint and just from like a temperament standpoint and how I handle myself through a lot of changes that may happen in my life. And so like a lot of it for me was literary, but it was finding people or finding things that I can relate to. So I know some people, because I know people that escape to fiction. And they escape to things that are more on that fantasy standpoint. But for me, it was like I needed kind of self-help books that really helped me kind of navigate through situations that I was going through, and from people that looked like me. And people that were not too far off of my age.
That's why I'm saying Instagram, I follow black men that were talking about mental health.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of people. So I like that.
There are a lot of people that are doing that, and I know like I don't want to call him an idol. I use that word very carefully, but like someone that I respect very heavily is Kid Cudi. Like he's someone that has had and been very public about his mental struggles and like how he's overcame them. And he makes good music, and his music remedies how he deals with a lot of these situations. And so that is an example for me of how to use creativity to remedy whatever issue you're going through. And so people have whatever it is that help them remedy. So if it's building something, if it's writing something, if it's painting something, if it's drawing something, like whatever it is, it's about finding that. And so you have to dig deep in yourself, and that's where my positivity lies, because like I was able to dig in myself and find, okay, what works for me. And that's really what it boils down to ultimately, like having to figure out what works for you, because everyone's different. We're not built the same. So what works for me won't work for you.
Yeah, and you can be like, yo, you read these 3 books, you're good.
Yeah, but like you read them and you're like, well, you lied. Like, that's not how I feel.
Well, the thing is though, I want you to we're gonna put those books in the show notes so that some people can read those.
Oh.
Now we're gonna pivot as I like it was pivot as an I gave that, I started that, right?
I didn't know that. I just saw
everyone does it.
Yeah,
because I said that I called Mark the Pivot King because literally we've been talking about something and it just totally changed subject.
So that's why now he shouts pivot.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. I didn't know where that came from.
Credit due.
Okay,
like,
cool.
You scroll all the way up, you'll see that in our
You heard it here, y'all.
Yeah, I've coined him the Pivot King. So we're gonna pivot though. So this is the shot for shot portion of our episode. You know, we did this last time, and you said what you liked in a woman.
Oh yeah. I remember this.
But we're gonna do our shot for shot. You want to go first? I'll go first.
Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay.
J. Cole or Kendrick?
Oh, J. Cole. I mean, the only reason why I say J. Cole is that for me, personally, I think the greatest region in rap music is the South. Without a doubt. So anything southern than the Dixie line is the South. North Carolina's the South. J. Cole's the South. I would quite honestly say that J. Cole is not my most favorite, millennial rapper. I would say my favorite millennial rapper is Big Crit. But most people don't really know. I mean, not people are really big fans of Big Crit because he doesn't have a Forest Hill Drives kind of album. Like he hasn't had as much commercial success. But in between J. Cole and Kendrick, it's Cole for me. I've been to 2 Cole shows. I've been to the Forest Hill Drive one. No, sorry. I've been to the For Your Eyes Only one and the most recent, KOD. And both shows were amazing. He actually talked to the audience, and he's on this new mental health kick himself. And he was talking about like how the generation over drugs themselves with Xanax and stuff. And he was on a whole tangent. And I just connect with him. I love Cole, and so yeah, Cole World. I'm a Cole fan. Now Kendrick's dope too.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I'm not gonna
For
say
sure.
that, but for me, personal preference is J Cole.
Okay.
So I like that because I was gonna go musically on you too. I want you to open your phone, and I want you to look at the last 3 tracks that you played on your phone and share that with the listeners. What was the last 3 songs, or let's do 5 songs, the last 5 songs you listened to,
Okay.
and what's going on? Were they on shuffle, or did you, just kind of let it rock?
So I can give you guys that pretty quickly. So number one on the most recent was This the Night by Gucci
Yeah,
off of Evil Genius.
yeah, I like that one in the sky song.
Number two on that was Bipolar featuring Quavo, also on Evil Genius.
Okay.
The next one was ASAP Ferg.
Yes.
And that was
Good.
not Benihana. What's the other Asian? Oh Jesus, Nando's.
Okay.
It was Nando's, and so that's
I lost
3.
count. Yeah, I lost
We're at
count.
3.
We're at 3.
4 was Ned Flanders. That's I don't know how to even say his name. Manateo. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The skirt.
Yeah.
Like him
Yeah.
featuring ASAP. And then the last one was Conversation in the Diner by Division.
Okay, and I'm about to just, shot for shot. This is my show. I don't care. We had a really big argument. What is the best region in rap music or hip hop for the culture? And with that being said, for the culture, I'm saying clothes, music videos, lyrics, beats, because lyrics sometimes don't count and all that. Now, I'm gonna say my personal opinion is the South.
Mm-hmm.
They have the lyrics because they have Outkast and other ones. They have the clothes and the culture. They have the beats.
Mm-hmm.
The South, without a doubt, is the greatest, most influential region in rap music or hip hop music. And they had Miami too, and Uncle Luke. So if it wasn't for them, they wouldn't have censorship. So the South. Okay, go ahead.
So all of those reasons are the very, I think you articulated it in the best way. Very mature reasons for the South being the winner, right? But for me, I personally think it's the North. One, I'm from the North, obviously, but then 2, I'm from New York. But
yes,
I think of Dipset. And the fashion sense that comes with the people in Dipset, the samples and the history that comes with the music that people in Dipset listen to.
Man.
Because these are not people that were just rapping for the sake of rapping. These people that knew real music. You know what I'm saying? Like the samples that they used to have were just like authentic. They were historic. They were things that people weren't thinking about, right? They were second level. And then clothing wise, don't even get me started on that.
Pink clothes,
Fashion, Cameron, Jewels. Nah, these were people that were trendsetters.
Yeah.
So
I remember I had a Dipset phase in high school.
Oh, I had a whole Dipset Halloween costume, my man. I was Jim Jones for Halloween in 2014.
I'll give you credit in regards to ad libs and adding things to extra to track. I think Jim Jones is the ad lib king of all time.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. He did it before me.
No, my favorite current rapper is Young Dolph. He just does random ad libs, but to give credit where credit due, the ad lib king has to be Jim Jones and Ballin and all that. He would just say random stuff in the background, and now you're right. Migos be like, "Mama."
Yeah,
Jim Jones.
It's like they got that from Jim Jones.
Okay,
yeah,
so that's a solid argument. We'll leave that to the listeners to decide what is the greatest region of rap. So we're coming to the end of our show. As always, I allow my guests to give out shout outs to family and friends or side businesses or their writing, and as well as plugs and social media plugs. So, Brandon, the floor is yours for your plugs and your social media.
So I'll say from a plug standpoint, I can just easily say just thank you to you, Phil. Thank you to you for being someone that I can like kind of lean on when it comes to a lot of the situations that I've been going through and the things that I've been dealing with, because it isn't necessarily easy to talk to, and like we said, you have to be very careful about who you're talking to, but it's something to talk to someone that hasn't dealt with it and something to talk to someone that has. And so dealing with someone that is like-minded in that space is helpful, and I think sometimes it's important. And it's almost like I have a little support group without having to go to a support group. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I don't want to do that shit.
Me neither. I don't want to either. Yeah.
But and if you do need to do that shit, do it.
Yeah.
But like I don't want to because I'm lazy.
Yeah.
But
and I don't have time.
exactly. But that's part of what I want to say for my shout out, and then also like the friends and family and loved ones that have just genuinely supported me in the last 3 years, as far as from an acknowledgement standpoint, when I knew that it was happening, and how to help them coach me or help walk me through that difficult time in my life. As far as a shout out, or not shout out, but a plug situation, I would just say check out some of my writing. So I'm someone that I work in human resources on my daytime, but like I also write, and so check me out on CassiusLife.com, which is a platform for black men to discuss mental health, as well as sexual awareness, and just overall opinion and political views, current events. It's everything all wrapped into one. And then the same thing goes for Blavity, where I'm also a writer now. So just check me out on both of those platforms.
How did you get connected with those?
Harassing editors.
There you go.
Yep.
Shout
That's
out.
really what it was.
And you send out your articles. You send
Yeah,
them.
harassing. Well,
Well, you also
not
write.
sending full articles, but sending pitches and harassing the editors with the pitches, and then getting some kind of feedback from them on them and having them pull me in.
Well, the thing is, your writing is really good and it's really talented. So I'm not surprised that they picked it up. And so,
I appreciate that.
yeah, I'll leave that in a note. Thank you so much for listening. Positive Filter listeners, your support this year has been tremendous. If you have any questions for the podcast, call 571-336-6560. That's 571-336-6560, or use Twitter or at Positive Filter, or Instagram at Positive Filter. Leave comments and things like that. We love to hear from the listeners. Thank you so much for being on the show, Brandon. And
My pleasure, man. Thank you.
06.
06. Be blessed, y'all. Be blessed. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to Positive Filter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.